Alright, hey guys. Oop, not what I wanted. Let's open, maybe? No. New file. Sure. Nope, why aren't you working? So, this program is Krita, and I'm still learning it right now. We draw, there we go. Cheaper than Photoshop, it's absolutely free. Yeah. Trying to figure out music right now if you guys want music. If not, then it'll just be me talking. Let's see here. Hey Dadlight, welcome back. I'm actually talking now. Okay. Would ambient music be copyright free, do you think? If you hear my cat, she's in my lap right now, but she's not being too loud. Let's see. Sorry for the computer noises. I think I'll just play music for myself and you guys can play music for yourself. That's alright. That way I won't have to deal with copyright or ads and stuff. Alright. So I found Krita to be a bit more interesting. They treat layers differently than they do Photoshop, so if you happen to be on a different layer but you have like this part showing and you try to do like a paint bucket with Photoshop, it would just paint bucket the whole thing, I think. But if I were to paint bucket this layer, maybe. Why aren't you working? Let's try that. No. Why aren't you doing anything? No, because I'm on this. I see. That's another feature that Krita does. It's based off of whatever brush you're choosing, like that. So you can see, even though I'm on just the one layer, it takes into account this other layer. Right? No, hold on. So this layer's blank. I'm also really bad at labeling stuff. But this is the text layer, this is the blank layer, and if I were to paint bucket that, it takes into account the layer that's showing, right? So if I wanted a solid blue circle, I should have hidden this one first, done that, and then put it back up. And then you can change the layers as far as what shows above each other, kind of like that. Anyways, I'm still getting the hang of it. I'm using my tablet, and there's 2 buttons. So the left click pulls this up, and you can customize it as well. But again, I'm still getting the hang of it. Ambient. Sure. Let's see if I can try to do that. What kind of ambient music do you guys want? Okay, let's try. Let's go over here. Sad music, alright. Thank you. Alright, so let's see. What am I gonna draw? Last drawing was just fooling around. I think I'm gonna try and actually practice this time. Let's see. So I did go to art school. Ugh, I can't talk. I did go to art school, so we could maybe do like a crash course in how to visualize something. it's like a transparent over here, but then this part is white. I'm gonna show that so it's all white, and this layer 4 is on top of everything, so that's what I'm gonna use to draw. So you can kind of break it down into shapes and angles, so to speak. So it's not a sphere. You have to think of the skull as a slightly different shape. Sometimes it helps to do that, so like you're trying to figure out the surfaces. So like you kind of have a flat surface here, except you have that taper down the middle, so the middle is roughly there, and it angles down a bit and up. That's why in art classes you have like live models and stuff, but it's to help visualize spaces and shapes. So this line here actually is too tall, kind of, so it kind of like tapers down this way. By the way, if you click the erase button, it is as if you turned your brush into an eraser, like that. You can see how it's not exactly opaque. Okay. And it's just a lot of looking back and forth to figure out your shapes and things like that. I have a really hard time with scale, because I'll start on one end and then go down, and then it'll just get increasingly bigger, which is not ideal. But the fancy thing you can do is you can select your stuff, whatever you want. This is the transform tool, and you can just resize it and do whatever you want. So for example, I suck at drawing feet a lot of the time. Remember when you're selecting stuff to always like select out of it, otherwise if you're trying to draw here, it's still only allowing you to draw where you had it selected originally. But for example, if you want to draw feet but then angle it, like let's say you have a person who people who have their feet like dangling like that, but you can't figure out the angle. Let me move that. I just remembered my avatar is there. So over here. So let's say you have a person and then you're trying to figure out the angle of their feet. Come on. You can draw their feet. Like if you were drawing like the bottom of their shoe, like that, you can... Nope. Transform it and then rotate it however you want the foot to be. Like let's say they have like 1 foot up. Kind of like that. And then you can kind of angle it however. That sort of thing. Anyways. Kind of a cheat with perspectives when you're doing things digitally. Again, don't forget to select out of your selection, and then you can go on from there. Brush. If you want to keep something to scale, you would just press shift and keep it down as you adjust and enter to confirm the transformation. What am I doing? Alright. So you can kind of tell that this crack over here is not straight down the center of the skull. It's like more on this side. And then another thing that I do is I turn down the opacity of the underlayer and then just keep drawing on top, because I can already tell that my lines aren't correct. It's about the angles, because like once you don't see something right the first time, it affects the proportions of everything else. So like for the eye, for example, in my mind I know it's a sphere, right? But from that angle it's like squished down a little bit like that, and that's because of the depth that's in there, right? For the eye socket, and then the bone would go around it, so to speak. But it's just getting that angle right. And it's easy to depend on like your previous lines, because if I were to hide it, then I'm just left with that, but you can still get a rough outline. on what you're trying to do. The horns I'm actually going to do later because it's like an easy addition. It's getting the skull part first. That's difficult. Because like theoretically, they would line up over here and here at the same angles and whatnot. It's kind of like drawing a banana. But the corners get a little tricky because it's like you have to visualize. Well, okay, it's a bit easier. It's a bit harder if you have like a ribbon effect where it's like that type of shape or overall, or like cut through, and then you have to like figure out where it dips and all of that. Yeah. Just trying to figure out that angle right there. And then I'm also looking at like this point and where it lines up with the skull. So obviously I missed that. Roughly there before it dips like that. And that angle's not quite right, but there we go. Gonna turn the music down a little bit more on my end. Sorry. There we go. Okay. And then that part would be the horn, but we're just going to zoom up and Control Z always is undo, which is very much your friend. And then also looking at the distance between here, like the distance here. So this actually has to be further out. Nope, did not want that. So again, we're selecting lines, transforming it, and again looking at this distance, be roughly here. Give or take, a little closer. Right. And then you can kind of add another visual line here, so to speak. So just looking at that right there. So what I mean by that is like your angles here and here, so to speak, are they correct with this here? I'm gonna say it's pretty close. And And then also like the distance too. These cracks are really deceiving because you think they're the halfway point, and they might be, but then the skull might be like tilted more this way, so you're seeing more of this side. But then the horns are telling me it's pretty level, so these lines are throwing me off right now. I'm gonna hide the lower layer actually, because that also is throwing me off. Okay, and then this part, I'm assuming that's the nostril, again with the distance here. Is that correct? Did I have the teeth correct as far as distance goes? So what you can do is kind of like break it down visually, and so give or take from the edge of that eye to the edge of the tooth, you should have 3 equal sections. So 1, 2, kind of, give or take. Yeah, like I can already tell it's not quite exact, but you just have to decide what to be picky about. Okay, so this part has to be a bit further. Because again, we're looking at these lines and how far things are. Okay. Again, using shift to keep it all to scale. I know this part probably wasn't whatever. Let's actually just take that out. Remember, I'm still on this top layer 5 where I'm drawing everything. I'm just gonna take this out because it wasn't in the right spot anyways. The teeth are like I'm wrapping my head around the teeth shape, where really it's just like that almost right here. Like that, give or take. And then this distance compared to the teeth distance is about like 2/3 of it. So 2/3 of this would be around here. So kind of there. I tend to over exaggerate angles too, just with how you're drawing it, but that can always be fixed. You just have to take a step back every once in a while to see how you're doing. And yeah, general shapes again, kind of tapers up a bit, and then it's really close to that line here. And then you have that other eye socket right here. That's no. Okay. And then the angle here is kind of like that as far as that line. So this is too sharp right here. It's more gradual, like that. This pen is also pressure sensitive, which I'm still getting used to. But I like this graphite brush so far. It's kind of what I'm used to drawing with. Right. And there's a whole thing on like, for line drawings, if you have a thicker line at a certain point, then that already signifies a weight to it. Like that almost. Or if you're drawing like this point compared to this point, you can kind of tell this has more volume, so to speak, than here. Like a pear. that type of thing, right? Pear. All right. So going back to this spot, there's a little bit. Can hear my cat a little bit. And this, again, I'm assuming it's a nostril. Kind of like that, maybe. What I'm also looking at are like the patches of different colors too. Like this area right here. So that's kind of over here a little bit. And I'm making this too pointed. It's actually more like that. So that means it doesn't come over as much. maybe. Yeah, sure. Which means we have to go back and fix everything. Yay! Okay, what am I doing? Brush, eraser. And this is the part where you second guess yourself as an artist and what you're actually looking at. Okay. Because then it's like, this part is not tall enough now. If you're making everything bigger. Yeah. That line seems to be okay. And then you have that line there. Right? No. Cool. It's just like at some point you just have to go for it. Then there's that indent part here. It's like that. And then it goes out. This part almost is like a twist in my head, or like it fans out like that. But I don't really know. It's hard to tell. Other thing you have to look at is like negative space too. So if you're trying to visualize like this edge here, you can look at the white space and see it's like a little ridge, so to speak. And then looking at that, does that match the little peaks and valleys on your drawing? Like that. Okay. See, right now I'm not drawing because of this right here, so you have to be careful and just click out to deselect it. And then you go back to your brush. It's like you keep redoing what you just did. There's a lip over here, and then it's like sometimes you just have to stop messing around with what you just did and start over with an eraser. Alright, so let's see. I'm gonna start painting soon. I'm getting a little impatient with myself. We're just gonna go for it. And of course, things can be changed later. Cat, where are you going? Please sit, cat. No, hold on. Just relax, cat. It's fine. And then we can see the horn kind of starts here. And then, again, looking at that angle and whether that's correct or not. I'm gonna be right back. I have to let the cat out. Come on. She's stuck in my sweater. Hold on. Be right back. making like a shape here and then another shape here and then trying to get those angles right. And then like looking at this shape here, if that matches here and then also lines up with the teeth. And then how much space is here. So this shape is fine, but again, this nostril thing. Sorry about the typing. Hey, Winters. Okay. Practice and art school, I guess, Winter's Rain. You can look back at what I was thinking as far as proportions. Ugh, words. Okay. So this layer 6 is blank, and I'm gonna start not really with colors, but again, we're gonna make this a lower opacity and then build it up from there. Yeah. Alright. Layer 5 is line, layer 6. Ah! Ty! Hey, Ross. Thank you. Free follows. Yay. I'm gonna keep everything like black and white, and then we'll like play around with opacity and brush size and all that stuff. Cool. All right. So I'm actually gonna set the opacity on this top layer down a bit too, so you can see the lower layers as we go. All right. Maybe not that much. Cool. So one method is to like start with a mid-tone and then erase like highlights, that route, and then you can also define edges like that. Um, Hi, Sheesh. It's funny because the alerts for those are loud for me and they scare me every time. Krita is free. Photoshop is expensive and you need a license and subscription. Yep. Okay. So you can pick shadows or not. Let's go with like the darkest of dark. Krita's a bit more intuitive for drawing, personally. Photoshop, like I was saying earlier, it treats layers by themselves, but with Krita, I mean, like, it's still whatever layer you're selected on, but it takes into effect what other layers you have showing. So you have to like hide all the layers so you don't want affected if you want like the whole thing. Yeah. So shadows. You can also turn down opacity of your brush to up here. If you want like lighter things, but it's not like the opacity of the layer, it's just the opacity of your brush. Nope, that was the other layer, right? Yeah. Again, bad habits with labeling layers and things like that. Right. Nice fresh, make sure you're on the right layer. So we're back on the shading layer. Brush size up here too. What's this? Horizontal mirror tool. Interesting. What does that do? Ooh, that's fun. Good to know. Alright. Still exploring. Speaking of which, this one right here is fun. It's like a four-way type thing. Anyways, that's this one here. Back to the normal brush. Normal brush over here. I'm gonna just shade this really quickly. Don't know how much longer I'll be streaming, but I might pick this one up at another time. Okay. And then, right, we forgot to draw on the teeth because we changed that. Again, it's just kind of general at this point too, as far as shading goes. Really quick. So I found one. This one here is like a smudging tool, but it's also wet, which is different from this one, which is also a smudging tool. But this one is a bit more directional, like if you were to... Here, I'll show you the difference. So we're gonna go with this white smudging tool, and it just like blurs it, so to speak, right? Which personally for me I like, because it's if you're working with graphite or charcoal, you can smudge things out like this. And then just kind of blend it in, and then it won't be so hard with the lines anymore. Granted, the lines are still showing up underneath with this one, remember? So this layer was just the shading that I was dealing with. And so you can kind of tell it's like a lot smoother, and then you can add the dots and details later. Charcoal, for me, and smudging, if we're just talking about drawing on paper, that's probably one of my favorites because it's very hands-on and just pliable and soft. This one's a little strange because just the way it smudges. Okay. Those are the lines, so I'm also gonna smudge them out. Might as well. There we go. Alright, the other smudge tool was this one here, which still says it's wet, but it smudges like directionally, which is great if you're doing like certain shadows, but then you would be missing that line, right? That's not entirely what I wanted. Again, this pressure sensitivity is something to get used to. Oops. Just lowering the opacity to get a clear view of the lines underneath so I can erase to the edge that I've created. that area I'm not going to worry too much about. Okay, so back to this layer, we'll bring it all the way up. Like that, maybe. What I'm doing right now is looking at this area, comparing it to here, realizing it's not. That part's too dark. Let me fix that. And then blend it out. Sort of. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the line layer and add a bit to that, but still work while it's under stuff, right? Right. I was like, why aren't I drawing? I'm using the wrong brush. Something to keep track of. There we go. And there we go. Just finding a few more lines. I know it's not detailed. I'm kind of fudging things right now, but the lines, as far as like darkness goes, weren't exactly the same. That part also was too too dark. What am I doing? Come here. All right. Nope. Then we'll just blend that out. There. Okay. Let's do this. I wonder if we can. Okay, so it doesn't look like they have the link layer option like they do in Photoshop. We'll see. Okay. Wonder if you can select both at the same time, if that's how layers go. Nope. Okay. Nope, come on. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and merge these layers. You know what, I'm actually gonna make copies of them. And then hide the copies in case I ever want to backtrack. And then merge. There we go. Okay, so that's all one layer now. Again, shifting to keep things in scale. We can do this nifty thing of comparing and see that we are completely off in certain areas. Pretty close though, right? Almost. The front bit, not so much. Oop. So this point in the middle, you can change it because it's the center of where you want to rotate things. Right now I think I'm gonna do that. Just rotate it up a little bit. Or not, no. Actually, let's not do that. Okay, brush, erase. And we're on that one. Pick a brush instead of a smudge brush. Right? What am I doing? This right here. This is why nothing's happening. There you go. Why aren't we drawing? Whatever. Okay, let's just quickly, nope, add another layer. Do the horns really quickly. What am I doing? There we go. Okay, so not that long, obviously, but I think the nose hole is longer and the snout is peering down instead of straight. Yeah. Like this whole area here. Oh, my foot's falling asleep. Let me just finish the horns and then I'll touch that front part up. It's comfortable. Winters. What? Yeah, it's fine. Nope. Let's move this layer over a little bit. Nope, that's not. This is what I want. No? Then looking at the distance between those. Right? Kind of like that. Too many lines, oh no. Okay. There's this really cool feature where you can tilt the whole thing, then just continue working. So again, that's the left click, and then you have this whole menu. Come on. There you go. I'm just gonna color this on that same layer. And then you have like a color transition, sort of. Okay, and then this might be the time to use this smudger because it's directional. And we can clean up the edges later. Nope. have to learn shortcuts eventually. You have the two highlights here. Nope, hold on. Kind of like that. And then I'll smudge that. Okay, so we're gonna look at this part again. I remember in Photoshop you could like skew an image. Wonder if I can do that here. There, yeah, kind of. Nope. Nope. What did I do? Is there like a free transform sort of thing? Free? I guess that's it. Like that, maybe. Let's just smush that a little bit. And maybe erase a little bit too. Okay. If I were being super detailed about this, I would definitely spend more time. But for the sake of this, there we go. Okay. Okay, let's see how we did. pretty close. I'd say the horns are a little off kilter, but that's fine. Teeth could have been longer here. But yeah. I'm gonna call it here. Thanks for joining me, guys. That was a really long stream. But hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Thank you for all the follows. I'll see you next time. Bye.